Welcome back. I know there's been a long series of videos for the Autocomplete project. This is the server-side file index.js. In this file, we will be building our Express app. This app I require Express framework and MongoDB native driver, which is the most low-level MongoDB library. And then on line number 3, I instantiate the Express app by invoking Express with parentheses. And the body parser, it's a middleware to get data from incoming requests. The validator is the middleware that we'll be using to validate the incoming request data. Logger will output the requests on a terminal with information. Error handler is very basic error handler middleware for Express.js. Compression, it's a library that enables gzip compression of our responses. And the handlebars, it's a templating engine that is very similar to HTML. Logger will enable us to see beautiful logs of the incoming requests. Error handler is basic error handling. Compression will enable gzip compression. And Express handlebars, that's a middleware that enables for us to use handlebar templates. The URL is just a hard-coded string to a local MongoDB instance. And my database name is Autocomplete. And then I'm importing React DOM and React DOM server. React DOM server lives in the React DOM. Maybe they will separate it in the future versions. This is 0.14 version. And Autocomplete is created by using React.createFactory. And all I need to do is basically require that module, and because I have module exports, that would be React.createClass. So createFactory would use that. Now I'm connecting to my Mongo database. I'm using mongoclient.connect, and I'm specifying the URL, which has port and domain. It could also have username and password. Then always check for errors. If we have an error, it doesn't matter to proceed. We shouldn't proceed, so just exit. Process.exit. Because it doesn't make sense to start to boot up the server. App.use, that's the notation that we use for the middleware. I'm going really fast through the Express.js part right now because I assume you already either know it, or if you don't know it, probably don't need to know it. And if you want to know it, take a look at my book. It's called Pro Express. It's over 350 pages of Express.js with examples and exercises. The important middleware here is static on line 29. Everything else, probably that and the body parser.json, you can ignore, and handlebars. Everything else you can ignore. So static will enable us to serve the files from the public folder, and the public on line 29, the same name as the public folder. So if you rename the folder, also change it here. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And also change it in the gulp file. Okay, so this is my custom middleware. What I want to do, basically, I want to put the collection on the rec for each request, to use that rec.rooms. So I don't have to code it manually every time I need the collection. So the first endpoint, the first API is /rooms. That's how we would get options. We would get the rooms And the Mongo database interface is .find. It's similar to what we use in Meteor, except here it will return database cursor, so we need to convert it to the JavaScript array we would use to array. And in the callback, tags would be our array of rooms, which we can then send to the client, aka browser, with res.json parentheses docs. Then app.post, that's the endpoint to create a new room, to create a new option. Again, we have rec, res, and next, request, response, and next. And in the request, I want to check that the name is actually there. So I'm checking body with that it's not empty, that the name is there. And what enables me to do that is that middleware validator. I invoke it with reg.validation errors, and then I need to check for those errors. If they're not empty, I don't proceed. I invoke next, which will trigger error handlers. If errors is empty or null, then I can insert that. Pretty much I insert everything from the body. I should probably check for that. That's all we need, just the name. So I'm inserting everything from the body, or I can just manually say, okay, only insert the name. And then the resulting object, I send it back, result.ops and the 0, because I need that ID back on the client, on the browser. So this is the most important route for the isomorphic implementation. If you don't get anything from this piece of video, this is the most important part you need to pay attention to. Probably the most important part in the whole book. So we get the URL. I use that port number, so just concatenate that string, and then finding the rooms. So I need the data in order for me to render React on the server. So first I'm making that database query, find, and getting the data, getting the rooms. Then I can render the template, our handlebars template, which is in the index.handlebars in the views folder. And what I'm doing here, I'm providing locals. Locals is another name for data. Locals will hydrate this template, and one of the variables is autocomplete, which is just a string. So React.server, it has a method render to string, and all I'm doing, I'm passing that component, passing rooms, and I'm passing URL. That's it. The second property is props. That would be the properties, but in order for me to make them available as a JavaScript, I need to use the script tag. So that's a little bit hacky, but it works beautifully. That's how the rooms will be available in app.jsx. And we can use it as a property when we create that autocomplete object on the browser. So the last few statements, just starting the server. So let me just quickly go over this piece because it's very, very important. This is how we render handlebars. But to handlebars, we pass two properties, autocomplete and props. And then the autocomplete is just a string that uses autocomplete object, which we provide the rooms and the URL. And we provide exactly the same rooms as a JavaScript variable on the browser. Why they need to be exactly the same? Otherwise, React will have a blink of the unstyled empty content. It will try to fetch the new rooms and compare it, and they're going to be different. It would not like it, so it will re-render. If they're exactly the same, the browser React would not re-render because it will compare the checksums. It will compare the HTML from the server with the data that it has and with the component it has, so it will kind of predict what is the end result, and if the end result is matching the current result, it would not re-render it. So that's why we must have the rooms on line 64 and the rooms on line 60. We need to have both. So let's quickly go into the handlebars. It's really easy. So all we need to do, we need to use triple curly braces. That's how it would not auto escape the output, because we want it to be HTML. We don't want it to be a safe characters. So use triple curly braces, the props, that's our variables, the rooms, and autocomplete, that's just bunch of HTML already rendered. And then let me just refresh your memory. This is where the rooms are used. This is why we need that props and triple curly braces. They become global objects, window.rooms. So we're pretty much done with the implementation. I just started the app again, and I wanted to show you how this works under the hood. So we have this script tag. It's coming from that props variable that we outputted on the server. So we're getting the data on the server, and then we kind of just injecting it as the variable right here in the script tags. And then our HTML that's coming from the React DOM.server, it has this attributes data React checksum. So this is exactly how the browser React knows that, hey, this is some server-side React code, and let me first go and get this data, and the data will be exactly the same, and compare my virtual DOM with this DOM. And it uses checksums. So if checksums are matching, then basically it's like, okay, browser React says, okay, there is no rendering job for me, I'm not gonna re-render it. So that's why it's the best way to implement this, because there would be no additional browser re-rendering. So you would hit this server, you would hit this URL, the server will immediately render the code, and that's it. The browser code would not do anything else. If you don't have this data, then you would see empty screen, the browser will re-render, and then you would see the same data again. So you would see like a flash of no content, and a flash of content, then no content, and then content again, which is terrible. So this is the best way. Use this feature of React where it checks for the checksums when it compares the server code, server HTML rendered by the server React with the browser React. And then if you go to console, just to show you window.rooms, this is our object of rooms. So you see Angular 2, see spine. So probably it's not a great way to link it to the global scope. You want to namespace it, but it works for this project. Thank you for watching. I know it's been a long series of videos. And if you need more instructions, refer to the React Quickly Chapter 8, and also some other resources on ProExpress and webappblog.com for Express.js. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.